I'm Shreena. I grew up in India and Hong Kong and then went to get my bachelor's in Brown University in America. I studied computer science and comparative literature primarily, but I also studied sociology and anthropology and gender studies on the side. I am an avid traveler. I wish there were more single female travelers in the world. CFW basically works on the three principles of education, conversation and action. So for education, what we try to do is we penetrate institutions that have traditionally maintained a culture of silence. We go to schools and colleges and corporates, places where people don't normally talk about issues of gender and sexuality. And we go to these places and we conduct workshops and we give talks and we give guest lectures and we do corporate trainings and gender sensitization, and we design gender-based curriculum for these institutions so that we can start reshaping mindsets and start redirecting thoughts in the spaces where thought and knowledge are beginning to be formed. For conversation, what we do is we try to create content, edutaining content, content that people want to watch and see and read and share, but also content that sparks conversation, that gets them to talk to other people, that, they see a poster in an elevator or on their Facebook homepage and they come back and they start speaking to their friends about issues that otherwise would not be discussed. So we use the digital medium as a way to spark conversation on a large platform. And for action, what we do is we try to facilitate effective long-term solutions that actually tackle systemic and institutional change. So one way that we do it is we partner with institutions in different domains and places like that so that we can have cross-institutional collaboration. They can use our research and our resources, we can use their power and their resources in order to actually transform underlying social structures. So NCFW was started by my co-founder Riya Vaidya and I, and we both grew up in India. She grew up in Bangalore, I grew up in Mumbai for a while, and so growing up, we remember that time in our lives when we just began to start getting treated differently to our brothers and the men around us. That time in our lives when, parents started caring about what we were wearing, and we started being told implicitly and explicitly that if we were violated sexually or if anything happened to us, that it would be our fault, that we were we had the family's honor, the family's izzat on our backs, on our shoulders, that it was our responsibility to be sexually pure and to be chaste and to control our actions and our mindsets. And when Surya and I met at Brown University in the US at a program that was designed to talk about social issues. So the first day of the program, we talked about sexism and misogyny, and she and I would talk about experiences in India. And what that program did is it gave us the conceptual and the academic and the theoretical tools to actually make sense of our lives growing up, because we grew up and we internalized these things. We thought that they were okay. We thought that discrimination was okay, that unequal treatment was just how things went, that on one hand if you call Indian women goddesses and on the other hand you tell them that they deserve the rape that happens to them, that is normal. And it wasn't until we went to that program that we started really analyzing and deconstructing and breaking down all the different factors that were involved in large-scale systemic gender-based discrimination. And so after talking about that, we would constantly, think about what can we do. We really wanted to do something, but what was it that we could specifically do that could actually make the problem better? And in our conversations and our research, one of the things that we realized was that a very large contributor to the problem was the solution generating domain, because the solution generating domain has such a terrible, misguided, unfounded understanding of the problem that when it gets translated into action, it actually makes the problem worse. So there's a variety of these solutions that exist. People say things and people do things, and institutions make laws, and it's all believed to help women to make gender discrimination better, but it doesn't. It makes the problem worse. And with this misperception, the other problem is that individuals don't want to re-examine themselves because they think they're on the right side of the battle. They think, no, we get it, we are educated, we agree with you. and because of that they're very, very unwilling to examine something that we call, that is called cognitive dissonance. That is the difference between, the difference between the contradictory thoughts that exist within you, that you believe something on one level and you do something else on another level. And so what NCFW does is tries to tackle all of that. What we try to do is make high level conceptual understanding of the problem of gender and sex and sexuality and rape and all of these things that are traditionally confined in academic institutions and think tanks and only get read by PhD students or professors. We try to take those concepts and we try to break them down and make them accessible and make them fun and make them easy to understand, and then give them to change makers, give them to people like you and I and all of our friends who deal with these problems every day but don't really have the time to read PhD theses or academic papers. So we make digital campaigns, we create fun content so that they can understand the problem, and by sharpening their analytical tools they can actually contribute toward better long-term solutions. So NCFW wants to reach out to as many people as possible, but we also want to make sure that the things that we say are accurate and reliable. The problems that are faced by, suburban middle class family in Maharashtra might be very different from the problems faced by an upper class family in Delhi, and so on and so forth. And we want to make sure the things that we say are setting in context specific. So to deal with this, what we've come up with is something that we call an NCFW startup kit, and this is basically how we try to address scalability while also maintaining specificity. So we take interested individuals who have the time and the energy and the passion in all of these different contexts, and we give them the NCFW startup kit. So it starts off with research. They will conduct informal and formal research on the mindsets of people around them. And once that is done and we have a better understanding of the problem, we pass them down our content and our advice and our infrastructure and our guidelines and all of that, so that they can set up an NCFW model within their own communities that is answerable to us directly. And so because you have a member from a community itself who actually understands that community, understands the problem, can speak the language, can overcome the cultural barriers, if you have that kind of member actually trying to transform the community, the change comes from within. So we give that member the conceptual tools and the knowledge and the infrastructure to actually change the community from the inside. So the way that we measure impact for our workshops is through a questionnaire and a learning outcome sheet. So at the beginning of the workshop, we'll give students a questionnaire that has all the learning outcomes so that they can tick mark every single time they hit a point. So, the difference between gender, sex and sexuality, the minute we cover that, they understand that, they rate it, they tick it and they rate according to excellent, good, very good, average, whatever. Apart from that, we'll also have a question at the very beginning asking them their views on something, and the same question at the very end, so that if the answers changed, we take that to correlate a mindset change. We'll also ask them general feedback on how we're doing, if they thought the speakers were effective, the pedagogical tools were effective, they liked our presentation, etc., etc. So what this does is, this A helps us understand how we executed the workshop, B helps us understand what they specifically took away and how they took away, and C gets us to know if we're actually changing minds, because if there's an actual change in answer at the end of a 1 or 2 hour workshop or a 1 week session or whatever, that means a very big thing, right? That actually means we have changed perspective, that these kids will then go out and talk to people around them and spread the message. Apart from that, with the digital content, we, measure shares, likes, comments, views, etc., etc. So we have an analytics team that will look after the digital component of NCFW. And so yeah, so going forward, we hope to penetrate a lot more regions in India. We hope to, right now we have bases in Delhi, Mumbai, Bangalore and Hyderabad. So we'd like to strengthen these bases and reach out to more places, travel a lot more. So far, NCFW workshops have been conducted in 17 different cities in more than 35 institutions across the country. So we'd like for that number to increase. We'd like to make a lot more content, and we'd like to have a lot more long-term strategic partnerships so that we can actually push for systemic and institutional change.